Hi everyone, so today we're going to have a look at a Bandai plastic model kit of a figurine from the Demon Slayer anime series. It is a figurine of a character called Kamado Nezuko, and so let's get started and see what is in this kit. So the front box art shows a drawing of Nezuko as well as how a finished build would look like. Now on the side, they show that there are many different colored sprues and runners for this kit, and that it doesn't require any glue to complete. There's also some poses of Nezuko front and back. So this is the short side of the box. The other side of the box shows that there's a lot of care has been made into this kit. For example, the details on the hair, and shown there is also her brother Tanjiro, which I will look at later on. So now let's go on and see what's inside the box. For the first plastic bag, we have strands of her hair, which has two colors, black and orange. The same for the second bag. On the third bag, we have some white parts as well as flesh colored parts and the stickers. Now on the fourth bag, we have her face, which I'll look at in detail later. In the fifth bag, we have two different colored sprues, the red and green. In the final bag, we have brown and pink, which I believe constitutes her costume. Now let's have a look at the pamphlet. At the start of the pamphlet, it shows the sprues that were included with this kit, as well as some instructions for beginners on how to build this kit. The first steps involve the head, which looks fairly detailed, but not overly complicated. Then the instructions moves on to building up her clothes, the kimono, as well as her limbs, both her feet as well as her hands. So then that's the instructional pamphlet that's included in the box. It's all very simple. Looks like a very straightforward build, but I believe there will have to be some painting done so that the kit will look as good as it can. In order to see which of the parts that I'm going to paint, I'm going to have a more detailed look at the sprues in the next part of this video. And it also describes the quality of the parts as well. So let's now move on to have a detailed look at what was included in this model kit. So now then, we are going to have a more detailed look at the runners and sprues that were included in this kit. We are going to begin our close inspection of the parts by having a look at the many strands of hair that were included in the first two bags. In total, there are about 8 parts to her hair. In general, they have been molded in two colors, black and orange. The molding is very good. You can see strands of hair, so that it's not just one flat surface. So then these are the parts that make up Nezuko's hair. So now I'll move on to the second sprue, sprue B. The hairs from sprue A, by the way. So sprue B is essentially Nezuko's face. Her eyes have been printed out so that you don't have to paint them. But I believe I will have to do some dry painting with pastels onto her face in order to make it look more alive, more, for example, to make her cheeks more rosy. So that is something I do think I have to do in addition to painting her lips as well. So now let's move on to sprue C, which are the pink parts of her kimono. I believe I would have to paint this as well in the sense that I have to paneline the designs on this pink kimono so that they become more obvious. At the moment, they are just grooves on the pink plastic. So apart from panelining the grooves that make up the design, I don't believe any other painting will be required because the kimono looks good as it is. So now let's move on to sprue D. Now this consists of the white parts of her kimono as well as her clothing. Now this, I would have to paint some parts of it. For example, the checkered pattern that forms the sash around her kimono, parts of that sash I would have to paint out their checkered patterns. The sandals on her feet, I would have to paint those, as well as the ribbons that tie up the white cloth around her ankle. Those I would have to paint as well. So that is sprue D, which is the white parts of the kit. Now we're moving on to sprue E. These are also these parts of her clothing, mainly the cloak, as well as the parts on her ankle and leg. I don't think so I'll be painting her cloak because I kind of like the texture and the color as it is molded in the plastic here. So that's something I'll have to think about going forward, and I'll see whether I'll do any painting on it. So that is sprue E, which is the brown parts of the cloak. Now we are going to move on to sprue F, which are the flesh colored parts of Nezuko, mainly her legs and her arms and her fingers, as well as her neck. So now there'll be some painting done on her legs, specifically I think dry pastels to give some shading to the flesh color. And I'm going to paint her nails as well, the nails on her arms. So there'll be quite a lot of work done on the flesh colored parts for sure. Now let's move on to part G, or sprue G rather. Now this consists of the bamboo that Nezuko bites on, and as well as one of the belts that she wears around her kimono. There might be some painting done for this, and I think I'll go into detail during the painting stage. So then that's a sprue G, which is molded in a very pleasing green color. Now let's move on to sprue H. Sprue H is molded in sort of a reddish brown, more red than brown, consists of the soles of her sandals, the sash that holds that bamboo onto her mouth, as well as a sort of a belt around her kimono. So these will definitely have to be painted, and I'll explain in detail later at the painting stage. So this then is sprue H of the Nezuko plastic model kit. Now that's the last of the sprues. I'll be moving on now to the stickers that are provided. Now because I'm going to paint this Nezuko figurine, I don't believe I'll be using any of the stickers here. The stickers are for the sash around her kimono, the belts around her kimono, the soles of her sandal, the parts of and other parts of her sandal. So these are the stickers that come for those of you who do not wish to paint Kamado Nezuko, but I believe I am going to paint, so it's unlikely I'm going to use the stickers that are provided here. So these then are the runners and sprues that came with the Bandai Kamado Nezuko figurine. Let me just put all the parts back into the box, and while I'm doing that, I'm just going to quickly outline what I plan to do for this plastic model kit. Now, as you've made, I've been saying all this while I was describing in detail these runners and sprues that came with this kit. I believe I'm going to paint this plastic model kit. Not really paint everything, but parts of it, especially details that require to put stickers on. I would preferably paint those parts, panel line, certain grooves or patterns, bring out the details, and perhaps do some pastel dry brushing to bring out the flash colors. I might also try to use some weathering on her hair to see whether I can put some tonal variation on her hair, and hopefully that will make the model kit look much better than a straight out of the box build, because I do believe that a straight out of the box build without anything done for the kit at all doesn't do justice to the Nezuko figurine. There will have to be some work at least that is done on this figurine in order to bring out to make it look the best that she can. So now I'm just putting in the final parts that came with this box, specifically her hair. I'm just putting it back in the plastic so that they don't scratch, especially those parts that I'm not going to paint. So then this has been a unboxing video and a pre-assembly review of the Bandai Demon Slayer character Kamado Nezuko figurine. I hope that you have had some info out of this short video, at least to know what to expect if you plan to get this kit. From what I can see, it looks to be a very good quality kit, and I highly recommend it based on just this first glance. So I'll be working more on this kit, especially painting her up. Well, parts of her anyway. So I look forward to seeing you in the next part, where I'll be describing what I did in greater detail. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon in the next video. And do have a great day.